One day I feel alright. The next I'm looking for the light, for the light, for the light.
Today we are going to be doing the Cozy Fall book tag. This tag was created by Sam's Cozy Corner. I will have her linked down below. The first prompt is crunching leaves. The world is full of color. Choose a book that has reds, oranges, and yellows on the cover. I took this prompt a little further and tried to pick books that matched the season in my eyes personally, which were either cozy or scary or autumnal reads in general. Let's get into the books. I have kind of a big stack here. Obviously, first we have scary stories to tell in the dark. Come on. Self-explanatory, very cute, spooky. They're kind of cozy reads to read on a rainy day. They're fast reads, great for kids and adults alike. And the covers, I would say, are very autumnal. Next we have Thornhill, which is more of like a olivey color, but I still think that counts as kind of a autumn leaf color. This book is partially written and partially just pictures. It is terrifying and requires lots of content warnings, but it is very autumnal. I thought it fit since it's kind of haunted house looking. I think many people would like this kind of story this time of year. It's very introspective and dark and kind of spooky, but it also has a little bit of cozy going on. So the autumnal vibes are there. Next, we have a scary read, which is Coraline. I think the cover, in addition to being a little spooky, is also autumnal. This is a perfect read for this time of year if you like reading something that is scary but not traditionally adult scary. I found this to be absolutely terrifying. You know, I'm a wimp, so take that with a grain of salt. Horrid by Katrina Leno. I personally was not a fan of this book, but the autumnal vibes are there. I think the original cover is even more autumnal because the roses are black. This book is kind of fairy tale-like, and I could see that some people may enjoy it this time of year, even if it wasn't my personal cup of tea. Next, we have a favorite of mine, which is The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst. I really loved this book. I've read it twice now and I've been itching to pick it up again. Obviously, bones, the themes are on point, and it's got those autumnal colors, especially on the back here. Would highly recommend this. Adult necromancer kind of fantasy. Mustache twirling villain is a little cliche, I would say, but I loved this cast of found family. And I loved that the characters are all in their later adult years instead of early adult years. They're retired heroes called back to the field, and I highly recommend it. Next, we have What We Devour by Lindsay Miller. I read this book a few years ago and I loved it so much that I ended up purchasing a physical copy. It's very unique YA. It's one of the most unique YA stories I've ever read. The romance, if you can even call it that, is extremely unique. I loved it. I think it's very autumnal. I think this is a perfect Halloween read. It's a quick read. It's very unique. I keep saying that, but it's true. And it stands out as one of my favorite dark young adult fantasy books of all time. Next, we have one that's a little more me, which is werewolves. I tend to like paranormal things this time of year, which I think a lot of people can agree. And this Mercy Thompson book, it has the spooky vibes. It's kind of misty, graveyard feeling. I personally don't think the covers match the contents of the books at all, but I do think that the book in general matches the vibes. It's kind of introspective. It's kind of cozy murder mystery feeling with a heavy hand in paranormal creatures. Anyways, a great adult urban fantasy for any audience. Don't judge this book by its cover. Next, we have two books by Emily Lloyd Jones. This is The Bone Houses and this is The Drowned Woods. I love Emily Lloyd Jones's books. They're very fairy tale writing with that storytelling that reads out loud very well. The characters are easy to love. The stories are very well constructed and they have really good vibes. They're definitely dark fantasy, but without any like questionable morals going on. It's more just cozy fairy tale dark fantasy that I think is really good for this time of year. These are young adult, but as an adult, I enjoy them a lot. Next, we have The Revenge of the Shadow King, and I will be completely honest, I've not read this book. It's by Derek Benz and J.S. Lewis. I've not read it yet, but just based on the research I've done on this book and its beautiful cover. very autumnal if you ask me. It's a spooky book. It's about a shadow king who I believe is hunting children in this small town. It's like goblins. He's a goblin king, not a shadow king. I think it seems appropriate. I haven't read it yet, so I can't say if I recommend it as a good story, but what I can say is it seems like at least the vibes are on point. How many times have I said vibes in this video? Somebody count and leave it down below. Next we have Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, which is a spin-off novel for the Nightmare Before Christmas movie. This is Sally's story by Shea Ernshaw. Shea Ernshaw did Sally so much justice in this book. I've been wanting to reread it this year because it was so good. This story is like nothing else. I loved it. If you enjoyed the original franchise, you are absolutely going to love this book. I love the subtle feminism in this book, but ultimately, obviously the vibes are on point. The colors are beautiful. Sally herself is an icon of autumn. What could be better at this time of year? We have some books that I don't physically own right now, or I don't have the dust jackets on them. So for example, Six of Crows, very beautiful cover. Garlic and the Vampire, that duology, so sweet, so perfect for autumn. It's got a witch, it's got vegetables who've become little people, and it's so vibes. It's so much vibes, and there's obviously a vampire in it. Pumpkinheads, a graphic novel that I read a few years back. I don't own it. I should probably. It's very cute. It's a little romance. It's definitely part of this season because it takes place in a pumpkin patch. Those are all the books that I have that kind of have covers and aesthetics that match this season. Let's move on to the next prompt. Cozy sweater. It's finally that time of season where we can get all warm and cozy wearing our sweaters. So what book gives me the warm fuzzies? I'm just gonna list a few here that I think personally match my preferences, and they are specific ones for me, but everyone will have their own. First, I don't own the physical books, but the Guardians of Gaul series is something that just makes me feel so good. Something about these books ignites something in my soul and feels like a hug, and I don't know what it is. I'm obsessed with them. I have a reading vlog about these coming out. I know I've been saying that all year, but it's a long series, so I've been reading it all year long to make this video for everyone. Definitely cozy vibes. I don't know what it is. It's just something about their found family clicks with my mind and my soul. Books that I do own, I have any middle grade featuring a little cast of witches, anything that's like whimsical middle grade. I don't know what it is this time of year. Middle grade just hits with me a lot better than anything else, and it's super cozy, and especially if it has that found family or sister vibes. This one's about a coven and it definitely matches that. I would read this if I needed a hug. Next, we have anything by Becky Chambers. Literally anything. Anything that that person has ever written will feel like a warm hug because that's just their writing. It's just very cozy, it's very comforting, and it's very hopeful. Like hope punk is kind of the genre that they've created here. This is the second book in the Monk and Robot series because I'm lending out the first. This series in particular is very cozy, very introspective, very hopeful, and just overall makes me feel warm and seen. Next, we have one of the first series that I've ever read that really sparked my passion for reading. I've always been a reader, but this is the first series that ever really made me feel like I identified as a reader as a child, and that would be the Magic Thief series by Sarah Prinius. I actually named my snake Prinius after this author. I still have that snake. She's, I don't even know how old at this point, but I got her when I was very young and I still have her. She's still kicking it. This series is very cozy fantasy. It's fun. It's got its own little language. The books are pretty quick. I used to read them in like one day. There's illustrations. Ultimately, these give me warm, huggy feelings because of nostalgia. And lastly, this one is very niche. It's a very me thing. The Tale of Despero by Kate DiCamillo. DiCamillo is a wonderful author that is objectively agreed upon. I have a whole collection of her books over here. This book in particular, something about its fairy tale aesthetics make me feel warm inside, and I actually, since I was a child, have carried around this exact edition of this book to every sleepover, even as an adult if I, you know, spent the night at someone's house or when I moved into the dorms. I carried this book with me literally everywhere. It is my comfort book. I used to read pages of it when I was having anxiety and it would make me feel better. This is just a book that is very, very special to me personally and feels cozy. Next, the prompt is Fall Storm. The wind is howling and the rain is pounding. Choose your favorite book or genre that you like to read on stormy days. For me, I have 2 genres, I guess, and then additionally some specific books that I think fit those genres. Really high fantasy that's kind of on the slower side. Some may think of like Tolkien or something like that. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Tolkien. My equivalent would be Michael J. Sullivan's The Legends of the First Empire. This series is very cozy, it's very introspective, and it's just got those really high fantasy vibes, but kind of on the rural side. It's not high fantasy with huge stakes and magic and explosions. It's slower paced. There's a lot of character development, and overall it feels just cozy, and the found family in it makes it feel even more cozy. I find this to be the perfect series to sit on the couch with a big blanket and a nice cup of coffee and to just binge as much as possible all at once. In addition to that, darker stories that are more dark fairy tale feeling stories, and I think that would be faster reads as well, a little bit shorter. For that, What We Devour by Lindsay Miller is a great option. It was a very quick read, but it had the right slow vibes and it's written in kind of a fairy tale narration. And of course, that would be the same for Emily Lloyd-Jones. Once again, very fairy tale feeling. Again, quick reads. This one's a little bit out there, I would say, because it doesn't really match the autumn aesthetic that I'm going for, but it does match winter, and I think we're heading towards that. I loved this book because it has that fairy tale narration, but it is a mystery, I guess. There's like a murder mystery, there's some like paranormal stuff. Very interesting. I read it in one single day, and I think that is why I would associate it with a rainy day. Fast read, it has that fairy tale narration, but it's also a mystery, and I think if you like mysteries, that's fun. It's YA, so it's not like completely twisty. You're gonna see some of it coming if you're an adult. I still really enjoyed it even if I saw the end coming. Next we have Cool Crisp Air. What's the coolest characters you'd want to trade places with? The characters that I tend to like in my books have the suckiest experience, so I don't want to die, and it's hard for me to pick a character for that reason. I don't want to be in their place necessarily. I picked some that I think I could handle being in their place. First we have Ellie Sattler from Jurassic Park. I mean, she's a feminist queen. She shows those men what's up. She's a woman of action. What's not to admire? I've admired her since the first time I saw Jurassic Park as probably like a 5-year-old. Next we have Murderbot, because I relate a lot to Murderbot's inner monologue, and I think that it's really cool, and it has a great personality, and its situation is kind of sucky, obviously. I still think that they're really cool, and I would like to be them. Next we have Mercy Thompson, and this is the Mercy Thompson series. I just think she's really cool. I think she has a really go with the flow attitude. She's like, okay, what's the next step? Whose butt am I gonna kick next? You know, it is what it is. She doesn't really mope around at all, which is what I really appreciate about her. Not a fan of the love triangle going on in this series. The further it develops, the more frustrated I get. I do enjoy her as a character and the way she handles conflict. If I was in her position, I don't think I'd have trouble picking between the love triangle because I'd pick neither. But other than that, I think she's really cool. Next, we have Sibling Dex from the Monk and Robot series. I mean, this is I think they're so cool, and I would like to be them so that I could have their peace and their lifestyle. That's more the desire in this case. I really do enjoy Sibling Dex a lot, and it's goals. It's goals to reach that level of peace and to find a career that you feel is slow and nourishing of the soul. I love what they do. I do. I really love it. And last, this one's very unrealistic, but Nausicaa from A Dark and Hollow Star. I mean, who wouldn't want to be her? She's so cool. She's so cool. She's so carefree. Nothing rattles her, and she kicks. Also, she's gay. So what is there not to love? I love Nausicaa, and I can't wait to read the second book. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I do have it hidden in my books down here that I wrapped up. Very, very excited to continue on with this series because Nausicaa, I might switch sides for her, if you know what I mean. Next, we have Hot Apple Cider. What underhyped books do you think deserve to be the next biggest, hottest thing? I give huge kudos to the creator of this because this is such a cool prompt. I love this idea. First, we have The Guardians of Gaul. I think it's so underrated. More children should be reading this. I think it should be given for free to every child in the world because it's just such a great series about growing up and identity. And I think more adults should be open to reading it if they didn't read it as a child because it's so good. Me, an adult person who does like children's books, to be fair, really, really enjoys it. I am obsessed and I can't stop reading them. So I think it should be more popular. And then we have the Legends of the First Empire series by Michael J. Sullivan. I think this is one of the best high fantasies I've ever read. It's just so good. The beginning of the first book, I'd say the first half, I will admit is a little slow and it's probably going to be a little hard to get into, but trust me, that second book, it's so worth it. This is the most unique high fantasy book that I've ever read so far. It's just the world building is so unique and this author took such a unique approach to this series. I think it should be more popular. If you like high fantasy, I highly recommend giving this one a try because I think once you hit that second book, you're going to see why it's just so good and so underrated. Next, we have the Wings of Fire series by Tui Sunderland. This is the graphic novel. I also recently purchased the entire book series, which I haven't read yet, but I am reading the graphic novels to see if I was interested, and I ended up becoming obsessed with them and purchased all of the graphic novels, which I don't normally buy them, so that should say a lot. These have so much more world building and politics than I expected. Going into it, I thought I would feel neutral about these books, but they really shocked me in the best way. They have so much more world building and plot and found family and character development than I would have ever expected from a children's fantasy series about dragons. That's my bad for having incorrect expectations and prejudices towards the covers. Way more depth in these books than I expected, and I'm only reading the graphic novels, so imagine how I'm gonna feel about the full-length novel. A series that nobody talks about, and it upsets me because it's one of my favorite ever, is the Blood Right trilogy. I am on the third book right now, and I cannot express to you how good this is. This is queer space opera. There's military, there's politics, there's royalty, there's intrigue, there's huge plot twists. The romance is really cute. There's a lot of tension. This author is so underrated. Emily Skrutsky needs to be on your list. If you like sci-fi or you like queer anything, please. Highly recommend these, but it upsets me when I don't see people talking about these and instead talking about books that are not queer inclusive and are not even that good. Lastly, I'm always going to bring up Becky Chambers when I can, and this is probably the book that I would recommend for people that want to get into Becky Chambers. Their books are really good. I think they're really introspective, they're really progressive, and I think it makes you question your morals, and I think that's a good thing. Highly recommend Becky Chambers. I see very few people talking about Becky Chambers, and if they do, they have the wrong expectations. So have the appropriate expectations, please. This is going to make the world a better place. Next, we have Coats, Scarves, and Mittens. The weather has turned cold. It's time to cover up. What's the most embarrassing book cover you own that you would like to keep hidden in public? I don't have any. I have literally no shame. I think there's no shame in reading whatever you want to read. If somebody's gonna say something, then I'm not here to give advice about how to deal with difficult people in public, but I personally have zero shame about what I'm reading, and I do not care if people see what I am reading, because at least I'm reading. I could be doing That's a statement. Pumpkin spice. What's your favorite fall-time comfort foods and drinks? So for me, soup. I'm a soup person. I love soup, any kind of soup. Soup is my life. I make a lot of soup in the autumn time. And then anything cinnamon and apple. I'm not a pumpkin spice girly, unfortunately. I wish I was, but I'm not on that boat. Cinnamon and apple. It's my favorite thing ever. Here are my favorite teas that I've been drinking this autumn. It changes every year as I find new things to try. I will have these teas linked down below, but they are my favorites currently. Warm Cozy Bonfire, spread the warmth. Who do you tag? For this, I'm going to tag 3 of my favorite little booktubers right now. So we have MJ Reads. We're friends on Bookstagram. An amazing person overall. Also a parent who reads with their kids. We have very similar reading tastes. So MJ Reads. We have Booking It with Atia. Love videos. Very good. The vibes are on point. Seems just like a lovely person in general. And then we have Hardback Hoarder because I think she would really enjoy this tag and really do a really good job of it. I'm curious what she would say about each of these prompts. Those are my tagged people. They will be down below. Please go check out their channels. Of course, spread the love, spread the cozy, spread the warmth. And if you would like to tag anybody in this but you didn't make the video yourself, please feel free to tag them down below. The more the merrier. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a very cozy autumn. And if you're on the other side of the world, I hope your spring is coming around real nicely. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and stay kind, siblings, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to check out the mystery link in the description. I have been linking, if you haven't noticed, some very silly things.